Um, so the timeline, and I'm taking this straight off the application. The timeline for what will happen after the workshops are over, at some point in about a month, we will be sending a follow-up evaluation. We would like to try to get the evaluation through our IRB at Avila prior to giving it to you, just in case we want to use some of that information in a publication. And so we also kind of wanted to wait until the end of the workshop to write all of the questions because we weren't entirely sure what specific questions we should be asking you. And if you think there's something that we should be asking that you would like us to ask, then let me know. Send me an email and I'll make sure that there's a question on there, or at least we'll talk about it in our group. I don't want to guarantee that, but that will include a question. But we'll talk about it between the three of us. And okay, so what happens from here on out is that we, over the course of the next year, implement CREP in our classes in different ways. I will certainly be available to you over the next year. And I think, again, Jared and Mark are happy to meet as well. One of the things I'm thinking about setting up are sort of regular kind of like hacks for putting together materials, or just like an open sort of group Zoom where we can work on things. But then I'll also have sort of office hour for instructor type things as well. And then in summer of 2024, what we plan on doing is inviting everyone to work on a manuscript for a teaching focused journal that focuses on our experiences implementing CREP in different types of classes. And I think that could be a good contribution to the literature. I think that's one thing people seem to struggle with more, is just thinking through, like, what are some of the different ways I could implement this in different classes. And I think in my individual meetings, that's a lot of what we've been working through, is just, oh, well, I didn't really think that we could do it like this, and we can, and that's great. So we will be keeping in touch with you, but just please know that you can reach out, you can talk to us if you have ideas for things that need to happen. Reach out and we can get people kind of working on those things. If you have ideas for future workshops, let me know. Okay, I'm going to stop. So what we are doing today, the schedule today, is we are going to talk through different details of your work. So we're going to talk through what you have been preparing. And it can be something that is like really well defined. It can be, here, I have a whole syllabus put together. It could be, I'm kind of thinking that this might be how I might do this one thing. If it's any level of detail, if it's like one little assignment. So just share something you've been working on, and please don't worry, and remember, there are people at all different levels of having CREP experience here. But one of the things I think a lot of us benefit from is like hearing how other people are doing this. And so I think that could be kind of neat. And I think we're going to try to limit those to, probably 5 to 10 minutes. Shorter is fine. If we end a workshop early, it's not the end of the world, but I definitely don't ever want to keep you late. So it's like conference presentation mode. And then after we're done with that, we will do our hackathon. And in the hackathon, we are gonna have breakout rooms where people can kind of go and work on different tasks. And I have a rough idea of what some of those tasks might be. But what I planned on doing was just kind of naming rooms in a way that's like, I've created breakout rooms. I've created 10 of them. I don't know if we'll use all of them, but I figured I'd just name them what people will be working on in those rooms. And you can just go in and kind of start working on that thing. And I'll create components on our OSF workshop page where you can store all of those things. Or, you know, if it's like something that's stored somewhere else, you can edit the wiki and you can put a link to where it is. And then Jared and I will probably float around in the main room and wait to be called into those breakout rooms when people need us. Does that sound good to you too, Jared? Okay. Well, that being said, and I'll try to make sure we stick to a pretty good break schedule. Breaks at 10 after 10. I'm on Mountain Time. 10 after 10 Central. And then another one at 1 o'clock Central. And we may have just a couple minutes at the end just to wrapping up. We're not doing evaluations live today, which was on the agenda for the reasons we talked about earlier. So we'll have like kind of a summary type, you know, I don't know, I'll come up with something inspiring. That's what I'm going to be doing all morning, is like creating inspiring Canvas backgrounds with like quotes on them to like send you off with. So, okay. Any questions before we get started? Okay, now this is like the ultimate in social anxiety of who to pick to go first to talk about what they've been working on. I guess the most appropriate thing would be to see if there are volunteers for anybody who wants to talk through these things first.
I can go if no one else.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, Shelby.
Okay. So I am looking forward to implementing things in my experimental class. So I have my like mostly done syllabus. I have a couple of things I've been really working on this week. I'm meeting with my GA tomorrow, so I want to be able to give them a good idea of, you know, what we'll be doing. This is kind of just all of my policies. I can back up to some of that, but I think just kind of talking through like, this is what my calendar looks like. So I've had a lot of useful feedback in the individual meetings. So I am planning, it's an experimental class, so they can only pick from the experimental projects, but I am going to give them a choice, like a vote between those. I actually put together this sort of survey where they'll be asked to complete that kind of for their first lab. Also as sort of a soft intro to Qualtrics, since we'll be using that, and maybe some of them haven't seen what anything looks like in Qualtrics before, so I'll show that really quickly. Then the second week, I'll have them outline whatever paper is ended up being picked. You may notice this is Labor Day, so we'll be getting right into it, but you know, I'll get these by Thursday, latest, you know, time is Monday, pick the paper, and then we'll start walking through like, okay, how do we read a research paper? How do we kind of delve into the depth of the paper we've decided to, you know, replicate at least one study from, right? Ethics training. I am having them do extension hypotheses in groups. Oh, see, I wasn't really prepared for this, but this is why I'm going first. The asterisks denote group labs. So they will submit extension hypotheses. I do note that, you know, I'm figuring out if they choose the pennycook, that may look a little different. I may have some groups who work on newer fake news options like the stimuli that are updated, but I don't know yet what they'll pick. So that's kind of a question mark, but they will have to submit something for there. And then, you know, during this time, I will be creating the Qualtrics and the IRB proposal and sending all that. I've talked to my IRB, they're super cool with me submitting it early on and then just adding the students with a modification and adding their extension hypotheses. So I am having the students practice by putting together the Qualtrics and putting together an IRB proposal, which is one thing I did yesterday, was like try to take our IRB proposal PDF that they have and turn it into a fillable PDF, which was a horrible nightmare of a task, but I think it's good now. So that's about as far as I've gotten as far as creating things. And then the rest of this is not really specific to CREP as much as it is just research method stuff, you know, writing outlines, doing a statistics review. I am going to have them again as a group do data analysis. That will be, their version that's well before everything is due, so we can correct issues, and they'll get that experience. And then we'll have poster presentations in class, or possibly just an institutional thing. I think we're bringing back this like multiple class poster symposium. So I don't yet know what that looks like, which I should, because I signed up to help coordinate it, but I don't know what that looks like yet. But that will be a thing that's happening. So other than that, it's kind of similar, but I will share, just because I am pretty happy with it and would love, whatever thoughts on that. The survey, just to kind of walk them through. So, I'll use the like CREP slides. They're just going to enter this information. Again, I was trying to come up with a bunch of different Qualtrics questions. I don't know if anyone else has experiences. Our institution also just changed to Qualtrics, so a lot of the students just haven't really experienced that. So I'll have them rank so they can see that this kind of question exists also. In terms of personal interest, with an explanation, how much they think the class will be interested. That one's mostly just for fun. I think it'd be fun to go through the differences between what they're interested in and perceived interestingness. Importance, because we'll be talking about this in class, kind of like the interestingness and importance and feasibility. And then feasibility with brief explanations. This is their first lab, and we'll have some time to do this in class, so I don't feel too bad about asking them to explain all these things. And then I expect 99% of the students will say, I have no thought about this at all. But I am adding this question just because I know a couple of the students, and I expect I will have a couple of overachievers who will be thinking like already about what they would want to do. And I want to make sure that, they have a chance to express that and start thinking about it. So I have a question like, do you have ideas about kind of an extension hypothesis? Just to go ahead and get that out. And then all of this is just kind of like group work questions, like what times do you have and everything, since I'm going to be assigning their groups. That's not always what I do, but I just wanted them to be able to get moving on things kind of quickly. And so they can put in names if they want, but I'm asking them, when do you want to work on it? Where do you want to work on it? How soon do you start things? What are your strengths? What are things you struggle with? What things do you feel comfortable with? And I also was kind of thinking these questions will be helpful for me both on a whole class level, and then also we talked really interestingly about like the idea of creating sort of project teams that focus on specific parts of the research project. And I thought that this would be my cool baseline data, where if I want to do that in a future class, I'd have a sense of how many people are checking that like they're interested in that or they feel comfortable with that. And then there's long-term goals. Then I'm asking them about, if anybody is interested in helping set up things for CREP, and kind of describing the credit opportunity, because I don't want to just offer that to students I know. And then I talk about both our on-campus and then CREPCon, again, saying like, this isn't binding, just like, I'm letting you know this exists, and you can let me know if you already know you're interested, so I can keep you in the loop on information for this and kind of give you feedback targeted toward that. So it's a lot of questions, but I think it'll be easier than making them copy and paste it. And plus they get to see how fun Qualtrics is. Okay, I feel like I talked for a long time. I'm gonna stop sharing, but I'm super excited for the fall.
That is super exciting. And I loved a lot of the language that you used in the questionnaire. One thing that I forgot to mention before we started doing this was that I was going to create, and just did create, a folder in our workshop OSF page for shared teaching materials. So Shelby, if you feel comfortable, putting your syllabus and a draft of the Qualtrics, maybe a PDF draft, just in case other folks don't have Qualtrics, it would be great. You all should be able to upload things directly to this because you are contributors to it. So let me put the link in the chat. Just put your first name or your last name on the file name first. You'll see there are two things in there already from Devin Burns, who came and spoke to us. He has a syllabus, and I uploaded those this morning, his syllabus, and then I think one of his assignments. Does anybody have any questions for Shelby before we roll? Thank you. It was really exciting having our individual meetings together and kind of seeing, what you had thought through. And I definitely got ideas for things I could do too. Okay, so our next person, I'm going to have Anton go next because he will have to leave for a little bit later. Okay.
So we met with Jared, I do believe. So the way our courses are structured here at Concordia, weaving CREP into the course structure probably either going to take a lot of time and like administrative pull, or not, might not be feasible. However, we are trying to start a lab here at Concordia. So what we're going to do is we're going to start CREP as the project parallel to our classes. In other words, it's going to be some independent study. You can say it like this. What I'm going to do and what I'm planning to do, my speech will be way shorter than the previous one. What I'm planning to do is I'm going to have them vote, because basically we have this kind of like experimental lab in which we have like a couple of our faculty and a lot of undergraduate students. Well, by a lot, I mean like 4, which is a lot for Concordia. So we're going to vote which are the, because it's not just me, right? Like this is going to be my students and some of my colleagues' students, kind of pulling them together. Which one are they interested in? My guess is going to be also a penny cook. To me, like I tried to hawk some of these ideas to them, and like I would say penny cook was the most successful in this demographic. We're going to send the materials once we decide. We're going to send the materials to the IRB, write up the application and so forth. I don't see any major problem with that, partly because I'm on the IRB, which of course I'll recuse myself, but nonetheless. So we're gonna probably get the approval before the end of fall if the stars align, and we are going to start. The major obstacle we're going to expect, I'm going to expect, is that we don't have SONA here. I think it's a lot of smaller universities do not have SONA. So we are going to either rely on the good graces of our students, which is not very reliable, or we might utilize some of the universities like resources that basically make it a paid participation. We're targeting the extension plus, replication plus, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about using the mouse tracking, like the one thing I'm good at, the computer mouse tracking, to maybe use it, maybe get like additional wealth of information about their choice processes. But this is more, I guess that this is more detail. Also, this will allow to use the online version more, probably Pavlovia. So that's what I have.
Yeah, that's great. And as you kind of work through that plan, when there are obstacles that come up, let us know, and we can help figure out. I think starting with a small group is a really good way to get your feet wet. And I don't mean to discourage anybody from starting with a large group. But if there are things that you think you want to work through, that's a great way to do it. And as somebody who's doing the penny cook in my lab, it's a great study for the lab because there are so many things happening in that study. Like you get examples of within subjects, between subjects, all kinds of different types of experimental design, and they can run participants in person. So sorry, I'm just trying to give some like quick feedback after each one. Does anybody have questions for Anton?
Well, I just want to I know I don't have questions for myself, but I have a lot of questions for myself, but
yeah,
I'm sorry, like looking backtrack. But if I can help, I'm just trying to like offer, if I can help anyone with programming and stuff like this, please email me, let me know. I actually I'm like these one psychologist who actually loves programming.
Yeah, and Brady has also offered that as well. We met Brady during that 1 week. I actually really enjoy it too, and I use SOSI Survey, which is free. Okay, but thank you. I'm gonna jot your name down actually as being interested in programming. Careful what you wish for. Okay, thank you, Anton. Okay, any other questions for Anton besides the ones he has for himself? And really feel free to jump in with like a quick question or post something in the chat. It's a pretty talkative group, so I'm not super worried that you won't, but okay. Who's next?
I don't mind going.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, it's all you.
Sorry that I have missed the last couple of meetings. I had some family things come up that I had to address right away. But what I've been working on, I wanted to show you the calendar that I've been working on. I'm implementing this in a research methods class, 200 level research methods. The class size is 18 people. Let's see. Okay. And I know this is sort of like a lot to look at once. And so the details aren't necessarily, well, I guess the devil is in the details really with this. But I do have, so our research methods courses are structured with a lab already, which is kind of perfect for this, at least in the way that I was thinking about it. And the first couple of weeks of the semester are really getting them into the project. So we are all going to do the Troy replication, Troy article. Couple of reasons. One, I am not an experimental psychologist, and the idea of trying to do one of these experiments right now makes my head hurt. Two, there are many other experimental psychologists in our department, and our students actually don't get a lot of exposure to non-experimental designs. And so I'm going to do that for better or for worse. So we're all going to do the same study. And after talking with Jordan over some of this, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of like be the person to do the submitting of all of the things. But students are going to do sort of little bits of it. So like everybody is going to contribute to the OSF page in small groups. Everybody's going to do sort of like a mini IRB for the experience, even though I'm going to be submitting that before the class starts. I think the thing that I'm most excited about, and I'll show you the draft of the assignment I have, is I am going to have them do extension hypotheses. And we're going to do a workshop on this where then they come in and we have a pitch day where they have to pitch to the class in like a blitz style presentation, their extension hypothesis. Let me new share. Let's see. Oh no, I think it's doing it. Okay. So there'll be a written portion where they have to write out, like it's about a 2-page assignment where they write out what their hypotheses are, where the hypothesis coming from, what exactly is it going to entail in terms of data collection. So they lay it out for me. So there's a written submission, and then the oral presentation part. So then the blitz style presentation, they have 3 minutes. There has to be some sort of visual, but it doesn't have to be a PowerPoint slide. And they're literally pitching to the class that the class should use this extension hypothesis. And at the end of all of the pitches, they're going to vote, and the top 3 will get added to the IRB. That's currently where this is at. Oh wait, there's something else I was going to say about this. Oh, and then the follow-up is that once we know what hypotheses, like what we're actually going to be extending, then everybody goes back, and like the different groups will be assigned to different pieces of the OSF page, and they'll go back and they'll edit the OSF page. And once that's done, I'll submit for CREP review, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the kind of thing that I like to do as far in advance as possible, because I want all of this written down. But that's kind of what I've been working on. Does anybody have any questions? Should I stop sharing my screen now?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, and again, I highly encourage you to share this. I mean, just looking at these.
Oh, I'm happy to.
That's so great. And if anybody wants to share it, like just with members of this group, I can create like a private component on the OSF page that won't be shared with anybody else. Just let me know, and that's something I'm happy to do. I know I kind of worry about things being out there because my teaching has changed so much over the years. This sounds really cool, and I love the pitch day idea. I'm hoping that they get really into it.
Me too. That's the hope. We're gonna spend a whole day in lab, like workshopping for pitch day. And so I'm hoping that it's not, they'll sort of like leave lab that day with a little bit of a momentum. And then we're gonna do the pitches and like immediately the next week. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that there's not enough time for them to get bored.
Yeah. And I happened to notice in just looking that your lab is like 1 day a week for close to 3 hours. And I just think that's so useful for these types of studies, because it's like, you'll just start working on things and be in it, and be able to dedicate that amount of time to it. I think that'll work great.
Yeah. The things that I'm most nervous about are getting to actual data collection point, that we get there in enough time that we actually get data. And so the Troy et al. Study is not on college students technically. And I cannot decide whether we should use SONA, which would be the easy way for us to go, or if we should have students just like collect random, data from people they know. So those are my two sort of like, I'm not quite sure how this is going to go.
Well, and I only mention this because I think it could be useful for you, but I had my class do the Troy et al., and we also decided on a community sample, although we made it available on SONA for people to get their research credits. We had a handful of people do it there. It was a semester I had both my graduate students and my undergrads doing the Troy study, so a master's level research class. There were probably about 18 people in my undergrad class, probably 20 in the master's level class. And we ended up, and we did, I think I've mentioned this to the group, when we collect participants, I do like a no questions asked thing, because to me, it's like, I don't want to tie points into them collecting data, because then we will get fraudulent data. And so I really hammered that home. We ended up getting 450 participants across the two classes. And I think at least 100 from both of them. And it's nice, because if you have a couple weeks to collect data, every time you're in class, you can be like, hey, this is how many people we have now. So like, everybody like email your friends and your family members, and it ended up working pretty well. It doesn't work as well for the studies that are really long. The Cameron was rough to do that way. It did end up getting barely just enough, but the Troy is pretty short. So you know, I'm guessing if you add some lengthy extension hypotheses, he might have some attrition, but
Yeah, no, it's one of the things we're gonna talk about is their extension hypotheses are meant to be
short.
short and
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
Like this is not adding, you know, a whole new
Mhm.
piece to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly I'm trying to make this as doable for myself as somebody who's not done this before in any way. I'm trying to make small decisions that make it implementable for me the first time.
Yep.
Which is why we're doing one project instead of having them choose a bunch of different ones, things like that.
Put your own mask on first. Yeah. Firmly believe. Okay, follow-up questions for Jesse? Okay. All right. Is anyone else itching to go next? I have like a tentative order I can, oh, Ellen.
I'll go next because there is a segue with Jesse, but I'll need a minute to get there. So I had done this with a smaller group in my spring 22 class. I'm not teaching that class again this fall, so I thought I was going to be doing it next spring, large sections, 2 of 128. And I thought, well, one can be the control and the other was experimental, but I still had fears about doing it with that many students, and it's in a topical course. So it's a 400 level learning and cognition, which is already separate courses anyway. So after talking with Mark, many of the suggestions that he had of how to do with a big class, I was already doing, and it was a lot with 40 students. But so I'm shifting, I'm changing hats. Next summer, I'm going to become the program director for undergraduate psychology. And so I want to use that position to reach out to our research methods folk that teach it, who they've all told me they don't like how they're teaching it, but I think they don't know what, how to invest, what to do. And it is set up as lecture with a lab every week, supervised by a GTA. And Jesse has real good street cred at VCU. So yeah, so that is my plan, to leverage the my position. So gathering data from this group, people who are doing it, and research methods to provide them with lots of resources. And then I can also say, and I did it with my class and it was a great experience.
That's awesome. And I can send you sort of the preliminary data from the CREP study from last year. I don't know if you're going to be at ACT, but I've just found out my poster with that data was accepted. So
yeah, I'm running the SOTL workshop, so I'll be there.
Oh, fantastic. And I'll also, CREP is going to have a table there. And if any of you would like to sit at the table for a little while, we have some extra money for the NSF from the other grant. I can cover your registration fee. And I can do that for like a handful of people because we have a little bit of money left. So let me know if maybe just a couple hours, just send me an email and let me know you're interested.
Conference?
It is the annual conference on teaching for the Society of Teaching Psychology. And it is in Portland in
October 5th through
7th.
Thank you. Thank you, my more organized people. What is time? I don't know. But yeah, I think, and again, if you want somebody to come like talk to a department or something like that, or just kind of share, like, I'm pretty good at like the no pressure, like you don't have to do this, but it's good for these reasons. Like I can zoom in and chat with folks. So just let me know. I'll even prepare a script so I don't ramble. I don't know if I can promise that. Well, good luck, Ellen, and congratulations on the new position. I can't not think of a better person for that. Okay. Ellen, anyone else itching to go next? It's a bad choice of words. I have Logan's name written down next. because you signed on first.
Oh, well, lucky me. So
Lucky
I
you
don't
indeed.
have, I don't have a super like put together. I'm just finding the light because my office is dark. I don't have a super put together plan yet. I will be out on maternity leave in fall 2023. So that's my excuse. But my thought is, because I don't go out until end of October, and I have a couple of fantastic lab students who are graduate school bound. And my thought is I can have them, because Jordan, when we met in our individual meeting, you had given me materials for like how the CREP articles were coded and chosen. And I really want to put some time in with my students to see if in like Emerging Adulthood, Journal of Research on Adolescence, a Journal of Youth and Adolescence, if there are some particularly maybe romantic relationship articles or attachment papers that could fit that CREP framework that we could code. So my thought is have my fabulous undergrads do some coding this fall, because that doesn't require a lot of my supervision, and see what they can find. And then regardless of how that endeavor goes in the spring, we would come back together. And if they find something fantastic, maybe we would wrap up to do a study in the spring, or at the very least put together an IRB in the spring. I don't know how quickly I can move that timeline. And if they don't find something, then my thought is we'll use one of the currently selected CREP articles that's available, even though it's a little outside my wheelhouse, just to get them ownership over the process. And I had another good individual meeting where like we kind of talked through the timeline in a given semester for how this can work in a lab setting, and that was super helpful. So that's kind of my implementation plan, is to just step through it with students, hopefully using an article that is relevant that they find in the fall, but if not, one of the CREP ones, just to get them that hands-on experience.
That's great, Logan. Thank you. And congratulations again. I think that's really exciting.
Thank you so much.
And also, I mean, make sure your students know, like, I'm in Kansas City, and if they have questions about this when you're on leave, like, they're welcome to come and chat with me, or, you know, come up to Avila and hang out. We don't have a lot of outlets,
awesome.
So, you know, warn them
Yeah,
about
no,
that.
I think that's perfect. Spoiled for
Awesome.
resources in Kansas City. So thank you for that.
Cool. Well, and the extension hypotheses, I mean, it's not ideal. So I have a couple different thoughts related to this, and I'm interested in what everybody thinks. If you know, if you do have thoughts about this, you know, if you find a study that's kind of tangential, I mean, I think one of the things you might be able to do is ask your students to develop extension hypotheses that are related to your area of research. So you could do the Troy, and then you could maybe brainstorm, like, how are there ways that this is related to like attachment or close relationships? Could there be moderating variables, or and it might be nice in helping them bridge like different, you know, areas of psychology together.
That is a fantastic idea, because obviously my students come with varied interests. You know, a lot of them, in some ways, I'm spoiled, because who doesn't like talking about relationships in some ways, but some of them are not going to go on to grad school in my area. So that would be a really nice way to be in the middle of multiple interests.
Yeah, it comes from being a cognitive psychologist. It's to work with students, of like, sometimes it's kind of hard to like get them to be super interested in some of the stuff that I'm interested in, which is the least interesting stuff within cognitive psychology. So the other thing I'm kind of thinking about is, and this has come up in a couple different settings before, is having like a sort of a partner projects section of CREP, where it's like people who have taken pieces of the model and do different things with it can, you know, showcase that or house it on the OSF in like a separate branch, or you know, something like that. So I don't want to discourage you from doing that, because I think that's where CREP Africa came from. CREP Africa is awesome. And they have things that vary. They have a different study selection process. Obviously they have different, you know, needs. so keep that in mind. I'll be working on that over the next year where you can, you know, create your own component and
Perfect.
add your partner project on there. Yeah.
Sounds
I don't
good.
know how that'll
Thank
work,
you.
but logistics are for later.
We'll see.
Okay, let's do maybe one more and then take a quick break just to get people. I don't know if I feel like I'm taking in a lot of information right now. And so I think it might be nice to have a few minutes to decompress in between people. Is that okay with all of you? Great. Okay. Oh, I wrote Marissa's name down next, and I feel like I'm cheating because I just
That's fine. Logan
just
and
said
I.
Logan. Okay. I think it was like an association thing.
She's here. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so Logan steals all my research potential students because her stuff is so much more interesting than mine. So but I think there's kind of two things I'm thinking of. In the fall, I did not have enough time this summer to get things ready for the fall. So I'm thinking more spring. And I think I'm going to start, like some of the other people on here, in a lab kind of situation. I think personally for me, I need to understand the pitfalls and where things are going to go badly before I open this up to a large. That's just me personally. Like, I think maybe earlier on in my teaching career, I would have just been like, let's go do it. But I think now I'm like, I need a second because I got so many other things going on that I need to really navigate, like, what is going to happen. So I can see that all coming. And I probably won't give them too much of a choice because I will hopefully recruit people who are interested in more of what I'm interested in and kind of build the extension hypotheses from that. But so that's kind of my tentative plan at the moment, is to kind of take some time and think about it before I jump into it. Not that, I mean, hey, those jumping in, go for it. Like, I'm impressed. Yes. Me, I got to get it together, you know. I got a 3-year-old, I don't know. So anyways, but the other thing, and I think I talked with Jordan about this, is that I teach this assessment class, which is essentially like test and measures, you know, psychological testing, whatever. It's got many different names, right? And for years now, I have taught it pretty much as a research project in test development. So they build their own scales. They get large scale data sets. They have a really nice, like, 2-study test development paper that they do. And I'm kind of, at one point, I think last year I want to say 6 groups doing 6 different constructs in terms of development. And it was just way too much. It's just way too much. I've always taught it as a smaller class, but it was too much. So I think, Jordan, when we talked, I was kind of thinking about how this could work with the CREP stuff, right? Is like how it feels like a low-hanging fruit to be able to kind of like either do some kind of validation study with some of these surveys that are being used or something along those lines. Because I know in a lot of studies, what happens is people just make up scales, right? They need for whatever purpose. And I think I remember 1 or 2 of the studies we talked about. There's at least, I want to say there's one where they made up a scale. There's their own scale in it. Is this ringing a bell for anybody? I don't know. So I think that could be a really important, another maybe extension kind of piece of this, is like, is there some kind of scale in there? My class could easily do that to kind of give it some more validity, or at least, you know, basic stuff related to it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But honestly, I really want to do this in a research methods class, but I haven't taught research methods in a really long time because I am stuck in a stats loop that will never end. But that's okay. But I think if I taught research methods again, I would definitely, this would be something that I would do. So anyways, that's a lot. I don't know.
That's great. And you know, I don't know if you'll ever be able to do this, but convincing, or I guess deciding as a department to do stats and methods as like combined stats and methods courses 1 and 2 instead of a stats and a methods really opened up a lot of possibilities. But we also have had people do this in just stats classes. I think Amanda's was a stats class, right? Was it research methods?
No, but one of the things I'm thinking about is how to use it in my stats class.
Okay, cool.
I think the problem with, and I don't know if other people have this problem, is that our stats class is open. So
Mhm.
we kind of do all of that. We teach like nursing students and criminal justice students and exercise science and pre-PT and pre-OT. And so it's not just psych. And so it would be nice to just have a psych and then a research methods. So I think,
Yeah.
but currently the way it's set up, it's like stats, people are just trying to get through it. So it's like, if I introduce this, I feel like, I don't know, nursing would not be happy with me, I don't think.
That makes sense. Yeah, I get that. Well, yeah, and we'll stay in touch with regard to doing validation stuff, or there could be a lot of different ways to plug in. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments about Marissa's? I'm trying to remember. That face was me trying to remember another question I had for you, but I'm sure it will come up if we take a break. Okay, so let's step away maybe for 10 minutes. Is that good? I have 10 till. We'll come back on the hour and get started again. Start recording again. And just to remind folks, when we do the hackathons, again, it'll be fine to like jump around to different topics. If you're the only person who's working in a breakout room, you can just work on that in that breakout room by yourself. If you have multiple people in a breakout room, but you don't need to collaborate, you can work on stuff quietly. You can work on stuff together. So, but if you have a specific request for things you do want to work on, please send me a message or an email or a text or some kind of signal that you would definitely like to be working on something specific. I'm kind of going off the list of wish list items with things that it kind of makes sense that we could create in a day. So like tutorial videos probably aren't going to be anything that we can get to today. Although if you email me and you say you really want to write scripts for a tutorial video with somebody, you could do that. Yeah. But the point is we can give you direction and like direct your energy to these specific things. And I have like a list of things that I think would be great to start chiseling away at. Okay, any more questions before, or any question? There weren't any questions. Any questions before we get started with the next round of sharing?
Is this our final week meeting together?
Yes, this is. Although again, we can set up individual meetings, we can chat with you. We will be in touch throughout the year. And then next summer we'll work on manuscript writing of our experiences over this past year. So, CREP related experiences, not like general. That would be interesting though. Okay. Anybody want to jump out of order and go, or just I can go down the list?
I can give like a mini update.
Great.
So the updates that I have are I met with both Jordan and Jared for my 2 one-on-one meetings. So as a little bit of background, I'm like new faculty at my new institution. I have a 2 load, so I'm teaching 2 social psychology courses, about 50 students each. And because it's like a content course rather than a methods course, I've been reflecting a lot and been discussing how do I incorporate CREP in a CREP-like project in a course that's not like dedicated to like methods and or stats, specifically because the previous time I taught social psych and that was just pure content, I still felt like I was running out of time. And so kind of what I've reflected on is I'm thinking about doing a flipped classroom design where I can cover maybe like the more basics or introductory things like pre-recorded and ask my students to watch that. So even if it's like a 20 or 30-minute video beforehand, to try to be more efficient and save time when it comes to like maybe like a foundational social psych term. And so like actual class time can be used to either talk about CREP or at least to do a deeper dive or more advanced dive on content areas. So I'm still hammering out the details there. It's not like a perfect picture. And there's like a lot of upfront work to like get those recordings prepared. but that's something I'm excited to do. Usually I do like a form of ungrading, but based on advice I got, sometimes like when you're trying to do too like many like pedagogical things at once, like it can be a bit hectic. So I think I'm going to go more of a traditional like grading assessment as well. Things that I've been talking about, and so that was thanks to Jared's advice. Jordan's been very helpful as well. She sent me some of her syllabi of how for her methods course, how she like basically has like this nice clean, like breaks out each individual CREP component and like almost like a checklist. And I'm very much I like my checklists. So at least how I'm thinking about doing this is similar to, because it's a content course and not a methods course, I don't think they need as deep a dive of they need to do the IRB themselves, or they need to draft like an abstract, or they need to do that. Rather, I'm thinking of doing the intellectual not intellectual humility and awe study, or is it intellectual humility? I study intellectual humility. That's why I think I'm the one choosing that one. I'm like, which one, because I know autonomy and giving them choice would probably be like helpful. But I think someone mentioned it earlier, it's like probably 90 to 95% of students, if you give them a choice, they're like, I have zero preference. So I'm just gonna be like, here, let's make it nice and easy. And at least how I'm integrating it into the course, instead of like this kind of like island or add-on, I'm trying to infuse it into the social science course, because I often talk about like open science or the replication crisis anyways. And so how I want to talk to them about this, it's we're doing this project not because you need to be like method experts, but I want you to, throughout the class, as we practice criticizing studies or like nitpicking things or how to improve studies, we're practicing what we're preaching, right? If we say there's an incentive problem, let's actually see like how you would go about this, and maybe like an appreciation of just like how hard replications can be, how much that goes behind them. I mean, the question itself of what is a successful replication could probably be its own like little semester. But at least that's how I've been thinking about it. I still have to do, what's been really holding me back IRB wise is because I'm new faculty, just like HR and onboarding, right? I don't have a lot of access to stuff. I'm a little less worried about the timeline though, because I fortunately have like some startup funds. So because I'm at like a smaller institution, or it's basically a non-R1 institution, where I can't get like hundreds of people in a week. But I do have startup funds to like collect data through probably Prolific. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm still trying to think of like a final project of either making them do like a poster presentation, or maybe providing them an alternative of like doing like a podcast, like they record themselves 20 to 30 minutes of them kind of like reflecting on their semester and their interactions like with CREP. Final tidbit I would say is really talking with Jordan about doing something meta on top of this, of collecting like student learning outcomes. And I'm not sure if any of you all would be kind of like interested in this, but Lisa was very helpful and just sent me some things through the chat as well about like STEM identity, scientific literacy, critical thinking skills. I don't know how in depth I want to go about it. Again, there's a lot of like fine details to go, but one thought is, if I'm teaching 2 social site courses, right, and they're 50 persons each, right, of like maybe doing like a version A, version B, or seeing like if there's differences about how we talk about things, or different implementation styles of CREP versus not. So that's just me kind of vomiting on the wall. Obviously, if any of you are interested, I'm not sure. I really care about like student engagement outcomes, and I know there's like a lot of work out there from either the Fort organization or Dan Quintana, where people speculate, or even Bill. I think Bill's in the room as well, right? Of like, what is the impact of teaching students or getting them into the open science realm? And that's just something that interests me. So, yeah. That's all I got. Any questions, comments? Snotty remarks? I'll always take snotty remarks.
I think this is great. And I think, yeah, Lisa, if you, so I shared with Lisa my pre-post questionnaire, not my CREPES pre-post questionnaire that we did for the CREPE study. I think it's fine to share that. I've shared it with, even if you all participate in this in future semesters, I think it's still fine to share it. And so Lisa, if you don't mind posting it, I can also post it in the OSF too. If I remember to do that, and there's like a contingency of things that have to happen. Okay, so yeah, it sounds like you have a good grasp on what needs to happen. that first semester is really tough. Or, you know, I don't want to set you up. It can be really tough. It's a big adjustment. So, you know, I'll try to remember to reach out for support multiple times, but please ping me we're in like several different Slack channels together. Send me messages anytime. And I love the idea of the flipped classroom. I may have a couple things I can send your way there too. I'm teaching an entirely asynchronous online graduate research design and analysis course. One thing I would suggest about the on humility, and this is just something that I've had good experience with, right? So like in my 200 level methods class where the students haven't read a lot of journal articles, so their efficacy is not that high. The jargons, like they're not really quite on board with. The Stellar and Awe paper, this was especially helpful with. I recommended that if they were struggling with some of the language in the paper, they could copy and paste it into ChatGPT and say, please explain this to me at like a 10th grade level, or just in layperson's terms. And it was generally pretty accurate. Like it was just sort of taking jargon and making it more, you know, I do tell them like, you could get something that's inaccurate, but I didn't end up seeing anything that was, and that really helped the students when they were reading that paper in the beginning to like try to kind of figure out what it was they were reading. And there's a lot of jargon in the Stellar and Awe, I think. Yeah. Okay. Other thoughts for Jacob besides go get them. You're gonna kill it. You're gonna do great. Okay. We've got, I think, about 6 people left. So, Bill, how do you feel about going next?
How I feel, or how would I do it? Sorry, I've got several fans going. So I don't have my act together for the fall, unfortunately, but I have a approximate schedule and a list of tasks I might do. Yeah, so we have like independent study course here, so I'm gonna kind of just hijack that and make it all about CREP in fall. And we actually have pretty big independent study things and lab courses, so there might be like 20 to 25 people working on this. So we're gonna try to do 2 CREP projects. One is the Cameron et al., where they do a bunch of trials and they pick between like a objective versus empathic choice. And then the other is that kind of complicated Stellar one on Awe that involves some like qualitative coding and things like that. But here is my approximate schedule. So yeah, a lot of the first week is going to be just like pitching why it's important and maybe stealing some slides from the CREP group. And then actually, I thought we could read both the Stellar article and then a bunch of like accompanying papers around it, so that like it's not just this one article, but you get like the broader context of like why people do stuff, or why they would kind of focus on this research thing. And then one thing I've been trying to do is give them more opportunities to kind of like present in class, just get more speaking opportunities, because I think traditionally our lab just has them do poster presentations, and it'd be good to kind of scaffold some of those skills as the semester goes on. One thing is kind of trying to train them how to generate extension hypotheses and then sort of crowdsourcing a bit. So with like enough students, if you have 3 of them, or each of them generate like 3, regardless of how good or bad they are, and then we can kind of like have a huge sample, and then we can kind of vote and pick the best ones that we're most interested in, maybe like 5 per study, since we're doing 2 studies. And then actually, aside from asking the hypotheses, actually operationalizing them is a totally different thing. Like, how would you go about setting all those ideas that you had just generated? So So I think we could maybe dedicate a whole class to that if there's like enough extension hypotheses where, you know, we could brainstorm different ways of doing it, like different question wording. I could recommend scales if they're like, we want to see if this moderates the thing. And then, yeah, doing a little bit more background reading and preparing for the CREP review. And then, yeah, around October, we're hoping to launch data collection. And then because the two things can be done online, there's a bunch of boring rules at Michigan State that I won't bore you with, but we have to wait to a certain date to launch online studies. And then as soon as they're launched, they can be done actually pretty quickly. So data collection will kind of like span these couple weeks. And then kind of within a month, I'm thinking we'll have like a data set ready and we could kind of analyze it in class. But in the meantime, we'll just be practicing a bunch of things. So like there'll be a mock data analysis class and walkthrough where we won't have data yet, but you know, there's other data sets available from other CREP replication things, or we can simulate some data because a lot of it's just like a one sample t-test is one of them. And then the other is, you know, basically like different kind of categorical data analysis, things like that. And then one of the extension hypotheses I'm hoping that they do is doing a little bit more in-depth coding. Either we can code for this thing that they didn't do, or maybe some way of doing like an automated text analysis. There could be an assignment where they make like a custom dictionary. We did this with like song lyrics, like we analyzed Taylor Swift song lyrics with like specialty dictionaries that they made and kind of for special things. Like one student did like swear words. Does like Taylor Swift swear more as time goes on? The answer is yes. So like that's the type of stuff we're looking for. And like part of the pedagogical thing is like, how do you, it's not quite programming, but it's like, how do you prepare a file so that a computer reads it in a way that like analyzes text using that? So yeah, I think that'd be a fun part of it. And I picked these two because they both have open-ended qualitative components. So that was like another thing that our lab is trying to do more of. And then how to write a results section, and maybe like I'll give them like results, like here's a table of just if you got statistics from an analysis, and then how would you translate that to text, and then get them to kind of practice that a bit. I'll be away to conference. This is Thanksgiving break. Data analysis is when we actually have the data. So yep, we'll kind of do it as a group, maybe some of the extension hypotheses analyzing too. Maybe a group activity where we get reliable as a group, like we just code in class and kind of all get on the same page, hopefully. And then maybe as homework, they can kind of code, they can split up the tasks. It's my lab, so it's a little, you know, there's not like deliverables as in this traditional sense, but and then data analysis of the open-ended code. So I'll give them like 2 or 3 weeks to kind of do some coding and make some dictionaries and things. And then at the end of the semester, I think we can talk about kind of the presentation format. We do have an undergrad conference in the spring, but the weird thing is we'll have the project done months and months before then, which is rare in my life to actually have stuff done so far in advance. But the cool thing is that we might have like 10 different extension hypotheses that we tested, and that could all be their own separate posters potentially. So yeah, so we'll have like a pretty strong showing on the awe and empathy research come spring 2024. The hope is that we kind of test a million different things. And some of this will spill over into the next semester. Like maybe in the spring, we do like a different project and kind of replicate this whole sequence over again. But yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, so in terms of like deliverables, there's some like class presentation stuff, some custom dictionary things, some coding at home, a lot of reading, but then yeah, so that's kind of the plan I thought of. So yeah,
I like this a lot. And again, I'm going to keep saying this, but if you all can share these things on the OSF page, everybody probably knows how to upload things to the OSF, but if you don't, let me know. Under CREP materials, let me put the link here again. If you can upload files with like your last name on them, because I think just seeing those schedules and seeing how other people are like organizing things is really helpful. And like I can kind of tell from just a few keywords, what it is you're doing that day. And it gets my wheels turning of like, oh yeah, we could do it that way. Encourage them also, if you do the poster, encourage them to submit to CREPECon. It's going to be next summer. We're going to do it again. It'll be in July. And I have a video that Holly and I put together on creating a poster for a virtual conference. And I don't know if any of Amanda's students use this. I know a couple of my students used it. They said it was helpful. If you watch it and you're like, I don't know if it was that helpful. I try to keep it as simple as possible and direct them toward PowerPoint templates and some key aspects of like designing posters. This is one of the materials that we send out to them in preparation for CREPECon. So, but that's great. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? I was just looking at my notes really quick to see what else I jotted down. I'm curious to hear what you think about the Cameron study. Let's talk about that sometime. And the analysis for that, there's some coding that I don't know if you're running it on Qualtrics.
Is this the 40 trials thing? And
yes.
There's
a time course analysis.
Yeah, and
so,
it's not in their syntax actually, or it's like
no.
It's for some stuff. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it's it'll be fine, but like, yeah, I'll have to really kind of maybe do some hand holding with that.
It's a real pain, but I have mine put together in a markdown, and
cool.
I think it's right, and it's from SOSI surveys, but you can still probably like use the syntax. So, and this is another place where ChatGPT has helped me out a little bit in teaching of like, I have asked ChatGPT to translate SPSS syntax into R and vice versa. And it does a okay job. Like there are some places you have to like tweak some things. But the time course analysis, it's like one sample t-test, one sample t-test, one sample t-test, and then like a repeated measures time thing.
Logistic thing. It's because they express, I read the paper and they expressed it as like a risk or probability of selecting the empathy. I don't know. So so it's much longer than the other one and it's more annoying. But the hope is that if we do it as a group, it'll be less frustrating. So
oh yeah, totally. Well, especially if you encourage people to complain about it. I think that's a fun part of my like lab more than my class, is that we like really get into like, oh, this is so frustrating. We're in class, I like try to have a positive attitude.
I'll dedicate November 8th to complaining for 3 hours so we can give it the appropriate space.
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. Let me know if you need a guest speaker.
Okay, sure.
I volunteer as tribute. Okay. Carol. How are you feeling about going next?
Fine. Sure.
Good. Okay.
Thanks. Yes, so I teach an undergraduate research methods course in the fall, about 22 students as of this morning, at least. So hopefully they'll all stick around. And as you guys have been talking, I've been like taking notes and like, oh, I should do that. I could do that. So thank you for all the wonderful ideas. But last year I did this and I chose the Stellar article ahead of time. And this year I'm thinking of actually giving them a choice between two, either the Penny Cook or the Sally article. So either the Mind Wandering or the fake news papers, just because I keep going back and forth. And so I figure I'll take the decision out of my hands and have someone else make the decision. So walking through like what CREPE is, and I think that'll kind of frame the project in a bigger context too. Like it's not just me handing this down out of the sky. It's part of this bigger thing, and they get to have some agency in that. So we'll see how that goes. And then, so offer that option. And I think someone earlier, I think it was Brady who spoke earlier, also had presented that idea of a beginning of the semester survey of their statistical experience, what they're comfortable about doing with a group. And then I think it was Shelby had mentioned asking kind of like specific things that they're comfortable with, which I thought was really good. So I'm going to do that too. And then have them read that in their groups, get in groups, and then design their extension hypotheses, or at least like get some ideas for extension hypotheses, show them like literature search and how to do that and kind of explore what's out there, come back, refine their extension hypotheses, and then they should be able to do that in one of our lab periods, and then share their ideas with the other groups. And I've done like a lab meeting style thing before, but I liked calling it an operationalizing brainstorm. That sounds way more fun. So I might try to spice it up a little with that, and have them kind of share these and get some feedback so that they kind of understand too. They're all working together, and then each group will do their extension hypotheses. I'll still probably do the main IRB. I have an upperclassman work study student that I might be able to get to do lots of things. So hopefully she can do that. And then each group, one thing our program does is we strongly encourage our students to submit something to CEPA. So we'll try to do that. That deadline is in November. And so that's our deadline for getting something to submit to CEPA. And hopefully they'll be able to present there. Doing it that way last year kind of I think that was motivating for students to be part of CREP and being like, oh, I don't have to come up with this idea all by myself. And so that was good. And I do want to do some sort of final survey. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes, but I'm too embarrassed to screen share. So doing some sort of final survey about their experience with CREP, like see how much they understood it and how it changed their like identity as a researcher, or their understanding of psychology as a science. Yeah, that's sort of the overview. Thoughts, feedback?
Yeah, that's great. And I think was somebody else jumping in? I'm sorry.
I just kept muttering, so it's probably me.
Oh,
Sorry.
empathy. No, yeah, constantly muttering. So we may decide as a group, because we're writing this manuscript next summer. One of the things we could do as a group is, get a set of questions we want to ask our students on their experiences doing these things and kind of compare those across. Yeah. So, okay. So seeing some nodding. If you're interested in that, I guess let me know, or I can also put a call out to folks just to see like what types of things do we, because this is being implemented in so many different ways. And I think that there's a good opportunity to get like some good qualitative feedback from the students, but also, just in general, like across all these different sections, what were some of the things that happened? I think that's great.
In terms of a manuscript that we're talking about for next summer, would there be value in creating a sort of standardized experience survey so that we could collect data across all of the instructors in at least part of it in a standardized way that could be summarized?
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm thinking about. So apologies for not articulating that a little bit better, but I am kind of thinking, these are things that kind of like class evaluations, you could add your own questions to, but also, we're asking the same questions to different students in the same way, and seeing, what the different responses are. And we have something sort of like that put together already for just CREP experience. If you all have participated in CREP studies in the past couple of years, you may have seen the post experience survey when people get their completion certificates. There's a survey that we send out for them to finish. And so we could pull on some of that, and I could get that together. I think that's gone live. Oh, this looks great. Okay, so this might be something that happens offline or in a breakout room. I'll add it as a potential breakout room topic to see if people are interested. But I think that that would be both very helpful and very interesting. So it's a sweet spot and easy. That's the other circle in the Venn diagram. I like to start in the easy circle. Okay. Carol, any other questions for Carol? Okay. Amanda. I have not, over the years, I have not got any better or less cheesy at hosting Zoom meetings. So apologies. This is just me. It's who I am.
Doesn't bother me. So for me, I guess a little bit of background. I was hired into my position because they wanted someone to teach R in a big intro class and then teach open science special topics courses. So I, as a caveat, kind of started thinking about one class, and then it kind of bled into everything because that's the types of classes that I teach. So I think in talking to Jared in my first one-on-one, I had grand plans of implementing a CREP project this fall with 350 students. And then Jared started asking very practical questions like, how are you going to do that? And what is that going to look like? Do you have a lab section? And the answer is yes, I do. But students are also learning R for the first time. So I think I'm going to walk it back and not do a full CREP project in the fall, but really what I've been doing is sitting with my syllabus and thinking through what weeks are really heavy in terms of coding, which weeks are lighter, and are there ways to get students to know about reproducibility, replication, open science topics, and Project CREP that don't require them to do a full project, because I don't have the mental capacity to do that. And I think my section leaders would riot, for lack of a better term. So what I'm thinking of doing for the fall is, rather than just sort of teaching replication crisis and here's open science, actually giving them a concrete, here is a multi-lab study and an example of one that people are working on, and use that to show them the open science components. And then cherry pick some examples of things like repeated measures ANOVA and have them do analyses with the data on open science so that they can get a sense of this is why we put data there, and this is not just something we tell you to do, but people can actually use it. And then moving forward, what I would like to do is pair this intro stats class with my smaller 20-person R and open science courses. So the students in the small courses could really be designing the study, and then students in the intro stats would have the opportunity to be participants. And then we would use the data from the students in class while talking about that analysis so they can see their results. And then that would allow students in the smaller class to be able to collect their own data and also have this class data so they could sort of do a mini replication within the semester and see how it goes. I had notes, but I forgot to look at them for this. But I think that was the main gist of what was going to happen there. And then the rest of the time, I was just redesigning my open science course so that students had more autonomy in what they were doing. So starting the semester with a survey, which is sort of what are my research strengths, where are my areas of improvement, and then going through the studies so that they can actually think about what can we do in a semester. And if we all need to learn how to program a study in order to do an experiment, maybe that's not the best use of time. Or we need to acknowledge that we might not get to do all of the things that I had originally set out in the syllabus. But that's, so I've just been working on surveys like that and a group worksheet so that they could pick a study and sort of know who's responsible for which piece of the CREP project.
That's great. Thank you. And the posters, I keep meaning to say this, the posters that your students presented at CREPCon were so good. They did such a good job. And I don't know, would you be open to sharing your class on open or the syllabus for your open science class?
Yeah, I can share that. And then I had so they did not use the video that you made because I made them hand in the poster before we knew CreepCon was a thing. But I can share the materials that I used to walk them through making their poster and stuff like that.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, agreed, Shelby. This is all super. I'm trying to keep up with the chat and all of these wonderful ideas. Okay.
Amanda, for the R and open science class, what about doing something like meta-analysis of existing CREP data like I did? I didn't do it as a, we didn't do it as a class, but it's actually relatively kind of simple, straightforward, doesn't, obviously doesn't require the development of any experimental materials, but would still get them deep into R and into open science stuff.
I love that. Thank you, Dana, because I have a note. So there are two separate classes. One is all about R and one is an intro to open science. But they do a secondary data analysis project. And I had a question of, is there a way to use CREP data for it? And a meta-analysis seems like it would be perfect.
Yeah, you could even have them do a meta-analysis without telling them that one exists already, and see if their results line up with
Yeah, well, that's always what we want to do, is we want to see if, starting from the same starting point, do we arrive at the same conclusion, and why or why not, right?
Right. Don't do the FANG study. There are some where the data might be a little tough. And this also is a little messy, where like when the CREP researchers end up doing, the meta-analysis or the pooled analysis, we reach out to people who might not have made their forks public or might not have posted their data. So we may end up getting like a little bit more than the class might get. But it would help them work through a lot of data cleaning issues, I think. Okay.
That's perfect.
Yeah. These are cool ideas. I wish I could just teach this one class for 12 credit hours. Okay, other questions for Amanda? And we have one of your students joining us as a peer mentor, which is really exciting. So thank you for that. Thank you for sending her our way. Okay, we have Lisa, Mona, and Dana. Anybody have a preference who goes next? All right, well, we'll do it in that order. Lisa, Mona, Dana.
All right. I'll try to keep it simple. I feel like at the start of the semester, I tend to overly complicate things for me. So I'll explain the context and then my plan. So I think I'm in a different position. I have a lab that's designed to give students who may have thought about engaging in research as extracurricular a little bit late. My lab is designed for students who may not have known that research experience was important until later in the game. So they sort of academically age out of other opportunities with other labs that might want to recruit younger students, academically younger students, so that they can train them and retain them for years. My hope is that my lab will give students just enough experience so that they build the confidence to pursue other opportunities, whether it's internally with another lab or to reach out. And this is my second year doing this. So last year, what I did is I was planning to do a number of replication studies. And as we were planning for this in years prior, we stumbled across CREP. I don't know how we stumbled across it, but it has been amazing for us to be able to have access to all the resources. And last year with 18 students, we carried out 5 different studies. All were related to CREP. And I designed it so that it was a catered research experience, maybe a little bit too catered. My goal was to get students in the lab, get them experience collecting data, having that protocol experience, data entry, so that they have marketable skills. And at the end of the academic year, I realized I may have over-catered. And so I'm redesigning my lab a little bit differently this semester. So what I mean by a catered experience, I hired a senior lab manager. So I'm fortunate to have that resource, an advanced undergraduate student who helped me put things up on CREP, helped me with the IRB protocol. So we got all that approved. And so students who were in the lab missed out on that administrative aspect of research, which I think is crucial. So I've redesigned things a little bit. I have returning students. The other thing I should mention is my lab only allows students generally to register for 1 credit, which translates to about 3 hours of work per week. And this way, there's enough people who are interested. By limiting their time, it allows me to distribute labor so that everybody can do things and one person doesn't just hog up the data collection. We do all of our stuff in person, and so we've been able to adapt online studies in person quite well. The studies that we did, Stellar, CELI, we started the Danaes, and that one expired last year. The CELI study is a one-on-one study. I don't know if anyone else is doing this, but it's really fantastic, especially if you have access to ePrime. And then the Stellar study we did in person, and we also have an online replication version. The direct plus hypotheses we generated without our students involved in the process. So let me tell you what I'm going to do this year, and I'll keep it short. I'm going to share my calendar, which I cleaned up during break. First off, like, some of you are so far ahead in the game, I'm really overwhelmed and I'm starting to have that pre-semester panic. I don't know if anybody else is having that, like, oh crap, I'm really behind. But so this is what I have. And a few things that I learned last year that I think the students would really benefit from is I just kind of assumed they would read the articles, but I don't think they really did. So I'm going to hold them more accountable. And we're going to do an annotated article activity where they have to turn in their annotated version of whatever study they're assigned to. So I'm not giving them a choice. So we're going to carry over 2 studies from last year, the CELI study and the Stellar study. So the 2 S's. And then we're also, with the help of a grad student, I'm going to launch a new study, and I'll explain how that factors in. So with the pre-existing studies, students can kind of like snap right into data collection. So we can start talking about things like following protocol and procedures, looking at an IRB that exists, looking at the CREP site, but I'm going to have them individually go in and update information that's relevant to them, so they get some of the experience related to that. So throughout the semester, they're going to work on the 2 studies, and we are going to allow students to work together, kind of like the other classes, to plan for extension hypotheses in the spring semester, if they so choose. So we're going to have an extension hypotheses. I should change the wording here because it's kind of boring, but workshop or operationalizing, we can call it whatever. But we are going to have a pitch day. So I met with Jordan and Mark, and I think Jordan, you suggested a pitch day that worked out really well. So I'm going to have students develop extension hypotheses related to the 2 existing studies, the Stellar study and the CELI study, and have them pitch it to the class. And I'm going to allow them to work individually or in groups. It's up to them. They can network or figure that out on their own. So that's kind of what I have as sort of the base of fall 2023. While all that's happening, we are going to embark on a new CREP project. We're going to, I think the grad student chose Troy. And we are going to start that from ground zero with the students. And so for students who are interested, and we'll prioritize based on seniority, they can get their hands wet, not dirty, but wet, preparing the CREP website and the IRB protocol for launch in spring 2024. So we're going to give students the option to engage in the administrative tasks and really get involved with preparation. And we're hoping that this will give our students diverse experiences and opportunities to, I don't know, market themselves and be confident in the future. So that's what I have for fall.
I love all of this, and yeah, and this is like a conclusion you came to on your own that I do a lot sometimes, which is, it's so funny of like that, let them do it in groups or let them do it individually. I have done that in my classes so many times and it works so well. I always have like a little cohort of people who want to be in a group but don't want to form the group. And so I usually use that as a third option of like, if you want to be in a group but you don't know how, and then they all sign up for that and I'll put them in a group together. So so like my little Introverts Unite section. Yes, so prepared. This looks really exciting. And if you are willing to share any and all of those materials on the OSF page, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to end up borrowing a lot of the assignments that I've seen sort of float around here in this space. So thank you all for sharing.
Yeah, this is a sweet spot of like, if we can all kind of help make each other's, materials better, that would be wonderful. And I really appreciate the wanting them to improve their confidence and market themselves. And just, that's a huge outcome personally for me. Yeah, sharing is caring. Okay. Mona.
Okay. All right. So I can show you what I worked on for the syllabus, for kind of the plan for the replication and the Moodle page, and go from there. So I'll share my screen. So can you see my syllabus right now? Okay, research project, right. So I just told them they'll work in groups of 3 to 5. So my class has 12 students. So I think it's doable to have 3 projects being replicated, 4 students each is my plan. I thought about doing one study. The whole class replicates one study, but I'm really struggling with just how everyone could be accountable. I think in a small group, it's easier to be accountable for learning all the steps of the research, how to recruit how to get the IRB application and approval and recruit the participants and, set up the study on Sona and Qualtrics and stuff. So I'm just struggling with like the whole 12. I feel like some students will be just, falling through the cracks. Also, my college is pretty small and we have the Sona subject pool with a requirement that all the intro psych students complete at least 3 studies on Sona. And most of the studies on Sona come from the research methods class. So I'm kind of worried if we have one study, then the intro students are in a bind and don't really have much of a, especially if they don't qualify or don't like to participate in that study or something, then they are in a bind. So I'm gonna go with 3 projects and hope I can keep my sanity, trying to, because they're all new to me. This semester, I have done replications before in my course, and usually there's at least 1 or 2 options, 1 or 2 studies that are being replicated that I'm familiar with, we've done before. I have my tips sheet for the students. I know where they will struggle and where they will need more time and guidance. This one, all the projects now, because I haven't taught research methods since spring 22. And so all the studies now are different. The only one that's familiar is Sparkman, and I think it's going away this month or went away already, is now going to be available in the fall. So I'm gonna give them again, options of 3, and hope I can keep up with all the new stuff as well. And then just a little bit of explanation why replication is really a good choice for this method class. It's their first research class. I think it's going to give them confidence that they're doing what experienced researchers who are publishing in, prestigious journals are doing. So they're not just any, what's the GPA and alcohol correlation kind of study. They're doing real research, and also that they are kind of copying what's happening. So they're getting the expertise. And then the extension, I love this extension edition this semester, the DEIA is gonna also give them expertise imposing their own research hypothesis and searching for, okay, what instrument can help me test this new variable. So psych tests, experience using the psych tests and stuff. So I think it's just a beautiful addition, and I've haven't, they usually haven't done extensions, serious extensions before. It'll be like, oh, we'll also ask about gender, or we'll also ask about, sexual orientation, but not really an extension hypothesis, with the full meaning of that. So a little bit of explanation. I do guide them to the CREP page, but I also said I selected 4 that I think are really good for our class. So they'll be choosing from those 4. And then I have them do the research project all as a team, except the writing of the final research report. So research proposal, they'll propose together. I detailed what goes in our proposal, the intro and proposed method section and the references. And then the IRB application, directed them to our Moodle site for the IRB application and the CT certificate and stuff. And then the final research paper. So this is the one that they do individually. So of course, they wrote the proposal together. They analyzed the results together. They discussed what they mean together. So all of that as a team, but then writing the final paper. So basically the new sections, the results and discussion sections, I want them to do individually. So that there's individual accountability and they're motivated to kind of be in the know of what's happening and keep on top of things, because they'll have to write it in their own words. And then the presentation they do as a group. So this semester in the fall, I'm teaching a section, and another person is teaching a section. Sometimes we only have one section in a semester. And when we have 2 sections, we do like a mini conference. So they dress professionally and we have, time cards and, they practice presenting as if they are presenting at a conference to the other class. So the 2 classes get together, and then we invite anyone on campus and the faculty if they want. But it's usually in the evening. So usually not too many people come except the 2 classes. But they'll practice presenting there, and that they can do as a team as well. Jordan, you mentioned ChatGPT. I did add a ChatGPT and AI tools kind of policy statement in my syllabus. So I will require them to use AI, not just encourage, but I will require them to use it this semester so that they're ready for the world out there and, can work more effectively. And so I'll tell them you could use it in any assignment, including writing your intro section for the paper and all that, as long as you describe or you provide the prompts that you gave and describe how you modified the output you got to make it higher quality, to make sure it's accurate, and so on. They will be accountable for any errors that the AI, shoots out. So they're really responsible for checking their work. And we'll talk in class about like, when is it a good, good idea to use AI and when it's not a good idea. Sometimes it's just not efficient, if you have to, modify prompts and, really, it's hard to get the information or it's not accurate, the citations are not, it's just easier for you to kind of do the work. And sometimes it's much easier and more efficient to use AI. So I'll require that. And this is, again, the first time I do that this semester. So we'll see how that goes. So that's what then the labs. So I do have, they do come in with a stats course already under their belt, but I do set time aside for just labs that I guide them through just to refresh their memory about the analysis. And in the labs, we emphasize like how to write the results in APA style, which they'll find in the replication report that they are replicating, the study they're replicating, but just practice, putting it again together, how to calculate the power, how to report the effect size, and things like that. So, so I might add some labs depending on which studies are picked, because we don't do factorial ANOVA lab. We don't do a single sample t-test lab, and some of the studies do those analyses. So I might add a couple of labs just so they're ready for these write-ups as well, if they do these studies. So I'm gonna show you the Moodle page I put together for my course, the research part of it. And I don't know if you're seeing it. Are you seeing the Moodle page right now? Oh, okay, good. So the research part, okay, research project, guidance and tips. So here's where I put the recommended studies to replicate. And I used Jordan's PowerPoints for describing the CREP and what CREP is. And are you seeing the PowerPoints now? Oh, okay. See everything. All right. So just I took some of her, like this chart that she had, just to show them what CREP has been doing, and the accomplishment, and that they could be part of the, those published replication reports if they wish. And then these are the 4 studies I selected. So the Cameron, Pennycook, Seeley, and Stellar, I thought those 4, because they are experimental, which I want to emphasize experimental, just because we talk a lot in the course about confounds and how you control for confounds and how you write them in the limitation section as possible limitations and things like that. So I wanna have a practice doing experiments, how to randomize, all of that good stuff. So these are the 4 that they pick from, and I put links to the full PDF for them, and then just one slide summarizing each one. Again, heavily borrowed from Jordan's fantastic presentation there. So they can go through this and just get an idea of what the options are, and then close this. So now are you seeing my Moodle again? Okay, so then they can select each, whatever one they want to look deeper into and read the actual PDF, and then they'd go and then go here and select the study they want. So I created this little section where they can just become a member of that group. So each group can have about 4. We'll start with that, and then if it doesn't work, we could have like 3 groups of 5 or 4 groups. I would really hate 4 groups of 3 because that's 4 studies. So I'm going to push for just 3 studies or less. And so they can just add their name, and then the groups are created. And the nice thing is that Moodle knows that these kids are in a group. So when they submit the IRB application or their proposal, they can, just one student from the team can submit, and it will, show that every member of the team submitted it. So I'm creating like the teams for grading just as they sign up here for the studies. And then what else can I show you? Advice for studies, I still have to develop that. So once they pick the actual 3 studies they're gonna do, I'm gonna create a sheet of advice for each study, what to watch for, and kind of tips for the analysis, tips for creating the Qualtrics survey, and so on. Moodle page, I directed them to our Moodle page for the IRB so they can know where the application materials are there. I have them submit to me first, the IRB application, and I approve it first before they send it to the IRB chair. This way it kind of speeds up things because the chair could take 2 weeks to respond. And if there's an issue, that's like a month lost. So I say, submit it to me and then I'll let you know right away if there's something you need to fix before you send it over. I recorded demos for how to obtain the city certificate for the IRB. A link to SONA, the research system tutorial, how to use SONA as a researcher and post your study there. A sample debriefing form, because they have to include a debriefing form if they are using the SONA subject pool, because the intro students need to kind of learn something to earn the credit. Demo for creating the Qualtrics survey. And that would be interesting if like they chose the, which one is the one about, yeah, unintentional and intentional mind wandering, the silly one. That would be an interesting Qualtrics survey because we have to like use timers and randomization and repetition and stuff. So that'll be a good, really good practice with Qualtrics survey. And I think that would be a nice contribution because I don't think it's on NSF. It's not done on Qualtrics on NSF. So they'll feel like they're doing a real contribution, adding that to the open science framework, to the CREP page, and other people could use their Qualtrics syntax as well to do the study on Qualtrics. Demo, I recorded the demo for how to create an OSF page for the CREP replication, G-power, how to calculate their power, and just, you know, a few guidance for stats, decision making for especially for the extension hypothesis, like how to analyze that. Some guidance on how to create a good PowerPoint presentation, how to create a good poster presentation, how to prepare for the presentation, what questions to expect or to ask as an audience member when you're listening to other people's presentations, guidance for writing the APA style final report, standards, the journal article reporting standards, just as a guidance for, again, I tell them if you like look at these things and just like follow them as an outline, you have a great research report. Just write a sentence or two to meet each standard that makes sense for your study or that's relevant for your study. And then I do have the example, someone mentioned, given an example of a replication research report. I really love this study, how it's written and how it talks about power analysis, how it talks about the pre-registration on OSF, why replication is important, how they got IRB approval, how they used the t-test, how they decided the sample size, all the stuff that, you know, I'd like them to learn in the research methods class, I think is really done well in the study. So I give them the article to read, and then we discuss it in class. I open the annotated one and kind of, you know, point out why I think this is a really good way to write your results and write your research report. And it's also not very long and just very easy to read. So I do give them that as well. What else can I show you? So that's for the research project. The survey, someone mentioned a survey. I will use a survey that I used before unless I find something or someone suggests a better one. So what did I used this one before, which is, I don't think I cited it here. Which one is it? Okay, it's by Harbicki, 2007. That's the author, and it worked well in a research project before. So they rate their own confidence in the different aspects of research. So it's a research self-efficacy scale for students. So something about the scientific content and the literature, the scientific style, the formatting guidelines, the literature search, the data analysis, the data presentation. So they rate their own confidence in that. And then I could do like a pre and post in the class, where I could also compare the data from this semester to the previous data when they didn't do an extension and did not do a DE. I should add something about social justice kind of awareness or consciousness, because I do in the syllabus tell them your extension needs to be, or I highly encourage your extension to be related to DEIA issues, because research in all fields, including psych, should take better account of DEIA issues. So we'll see what they come up with here. In terms of extensions, I talked with that. Discussed that with. I'll just stop sharing now. Okay, so I discussed possible extension ideas with Jared when we met last week, and we came up with possibly like self-construal for some studies, interdependent versus dependent. Self-construal, I think, makes sense for like the empathy study. Empathy is hard work. Or SES, or happiness scale. Penny Cook with the prior exposure, I think educational level, or using more current stimuli, as someone suggested today. Maybe that's an extension to kind of add a few stimuli that are more current news, and see if there's a difference. Silly, I think ADHD, we discussed possibly attention deficits, and we should have a good representation in the sample, because a lot of our students are getting services for ADHD and so on. And the stellar awe and humility, I think also self-construal happiness level might be good extensions that add to more inclusiveness in the sample. So that's what I'm working on. And I'm happy to share any resources with anyone or answer any questions, of course.
Yeah, that's fantastic. There's so much that you've put together. And I'm just thinking if there's any way for you to share that on the OSF page, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure.
I am going to let us go ahead and go for a 15-minute break. Dana, we still have your sharing to do, and we'll just do that after the break if that's okay with you.
That's fine. Might be brief, so no worries.
Okay, all right. And so one of the things I'm going to do before we go on break is just pop up this poll. So let's do a 30-minute. Is that, we had planned a 15-minute, but I think a 30 is probably good. I think if we have an hour to work together in the breakout rooms, that'll be good. Like we can get a lot done. And that doesn't have to be the end of our collaboration or anything like that. So, okay, let me get this poll up to see what you're most interested in doing. And yes, Mona, you are president now.
I just
Okay.
had more time to work on stuff since I'm presenting last. Or close to last.
Okay, so it's 11:08 where I am, so let's come back together at 11:38, and which will probably be 11:40, and then we'll get Dana to share stuff, and then we'll do breakout rooms. Sound good? All right. Thank you. Start recording again, and then Dana, I'd love to have you share what you've been working on, and then we'll open up the breakout rooms for folks to weave in and out of.
Jordan, I had a real quick question.
Yeah.
So for the breakout rooms, if we all get together and like, all right, here's kind of like a hackathon, right? Like a little task. Is there already like a set up Google Doc ready? Or like, I guess, how do you want us to like document it? And then I'm assuming upload to, or is that just up to our own discretion? Or is there already like a system?
This is a really good question. And it's something that I've been kind of like trying to think about how best to do. And I'm glad you raised this. on the OSF, there's a Google Drive component, and I'm wondering if I create a folder in there that I can share with people. Like if you do generate materials, you could potentially put them on there. I'm thinking you'll create components on the OSF and maybe add information to like the wiki. If you have things like that, I'd like to try to keep it centralized on the OSF, as I know it can be a little clunky, but also if you're not quite sure how to share something, like I can come in and I can help guide that through. And the tasks are pretty open. I mean, it's just, you know, create material. So if you want to create a rubric, if you want to, you know, things other instructors can find useful. And what I'm going to try to do, if time is not an issue, is sort of spotlight some of these on like Twitter or whatever it's called. And, you know, or if there's something, I haven't figured out how to use Mastodon, but spotlight some of them every once in a while, like, hey, one of our instructors put this together. It might be something that you can use. So yeah, that's a long answer to a short question, but you know, bring in that PhD energy to this. So, okay, Dana, it's all you.
Awesome. Well, as I said, this is going to be short because I really haven't prepared much of anything. But I have pretty much decided I'm going to use CREP in my lab rather than in my research methods course. At least for the fall semester, I'll maybe consider redesigning the research methods for the spring. But research methods for me is so busy with learning other stuff and doing other stuff, which kind of mostly the majority of my research methods course is really about reading and writing. And I kind of do that from the philosophy that for the most part, my students are not going to go into experimental psych. Most of them are probably oriented to clinical. Probably most of what they need to learn how to do really intensively is reading literature, interpreting it, and writing clearly and concisely, which is something that they really struggle with. And so, so adding in the whole sort of CREP experimental structure into it, I think would dilute what my main goals are in that course. What I decided to do for the fall is to use CREP in my lab. I'm currently planning to do data collection for 2 psych science accelerator studies. So that I use that to kind of get my beginning students up and running on getting a study going really quickly at the beginning of the semester, because all of the materials are ready and all of the protocols are pretty well set. We don't have to do a lot of groundwork. And then I was thinking of doing 1 and possibly 2 CREP studies, and I haven't looked at which ones I think I would choose. I'm lucky to have a master's student who has some prior experience in research labs, although it was chemistry and not psychology, but I'm going to really lean on her to really act as kind of a team leader for the multiple teams of students. I think I'll have 3 undergraduates and the 1 grad student. So I can have at least 3 teams, or I'll have 4 teams if I have 4 studies, and people will swap in and out of the teams. But that'll pretty much take up all of my time trying to get that organized and get them going on that. We're switching from Blackboard to Canvas. So that's becoming a headache that I hadn't anticipated. And also, we have some new administrators on campus, so I'm sure they're going to find all kinds of things to try to keep faculty busy with on committees. So I decided I better take it easy on myself.
As the kids say, felt.
What's that? Felt?
Yeah. I don't know if the kids are still saying that, but
What does
there
that
are a
mean?
couple there. It means I empathize with that statement.
Oh,
Like I felt that. So yeah, mood. I give them extra credit for telling me the slang. Sometimes. Not a lot. I mean, it's not enough to make a difference, but it's like, you know. Okay, so excellent. Thank you. And again, feel free to share whatever you have. Let me know if I can help at any point during any of this. I still owe you an individual meeting too, and I'm happy to cash that in whenever. Okay, so according to the polls, we have a lot of people interested in post-CREP surveys, brainstorming customization instructions for instructors. And this can be, again, you can create a Google Doc where you know, put like, here are some headings. I kind of feel like when I do hackathons like this, I work really well with slides where you can have like different types of headings on your slides. If you're in a group where you're like, you don't really know how to get started, just call me in and I'm happy to give some like, let's do this types of things. But generally speaking, I mean, having done a lot of these, there's usually at least one person who's like, let's try it like this. So I'm going to open these up now. And unfortunately, names of breakout rooms, much like SPSS variable names in the process module, cannot be that long. And so some of them might not make immediate sense. So post-CREP surveys, that's the one that most people voted on. Brainstorming customizations, I hope that makes sense as well. Create original instructions or assignments for students to summarize the original study. That's the third one. This fourth one down here is assignments and instructions on doing extension hypotheses. And I think the rest of them should be fairly clear. I didn't have to abbreviate any other ones. But if you have questions about these, just let me know, and just feel free to just enter anytime, go in, go out, call me in when you need me. Either Jared or I will pop in. If we're with another group, it might take a couple minutes. We'll call everyone back in about an hour and do our farewell and start furiously writing syllabi for the class that starts in like a week. So, all right, have fun. Bye.
But I was just like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 going into each.
I know.
That's why I was waiting to see where people were going.
Yeah.
I know.
Post-CREP surveys is where everyone's meeting. Can you make me a co-host so I can see if they request for help?
I don't know.
There used to be a button where I could like request that, but now I don't see anything.
I thought that
Let's
there
stop
was.
recording. Or do you want to record this part? Can you record breakout rooms?
Hang on. I am not going to record this part. I'll resume recording again just to catch this little end bit too.
If you haven't already, Jordan, you need to go to High Hopes in Kansas City.
High Hopes?
Yeah, Marissa, it's right.
It's really good.
I will definitely try it.
That's it. I'm moving to Kansas City.
You should.
I don't know why I'm here. People there are way too happy, and it's because of the ice cream.
Yeah.
Oh,
and the meat, yeah.
Barbecue.
Barbecue.
So, okay, so I wanted to do just a quick wrap up with everybody, and just again, really quick, we only have 4 minutes left in the whole workshop. So this has been great. I really appreciate how engaged everybody is. If you want to send me stuff to put on the OSF page because you can't figure out how to get it there, please do. Please upload whatever you have. Again, if you want to keep anything in a private component, that would be great. I was going to make most stuff public, so we could, share it with people outside of this workshop. So that was one of the goals. And Lisa, I have your doc, and I will add that to the teaching materials as well. Thank you so much. And if you want to keep, if you want to keep working on stuff, if you see a place where you can pitch in, CREP is all volunteer until this past year. But I'm going to be looking to find avenues to get people sort of more funding, to get people compensated for the work that they do too. And also keep in mind, I'm happy to write letters, promotion and tenure committees. This is why this work is important. This is the CREP work that they do. This is why it's important. I can do it on CREP letterhead. I can do it on Avila letterhead, and kind of speak to what you've contributed, but also why it is important, especially for teaching, and can emphasize the pieces that you need. So that's, I think, important to know as a wrap up. Again, feel free to contact me at any time if you want to have an individual meeting. I'm sharing my department this year, and so the first couple weeks might be a little bumpy as I learn how to do that and get used to doing that. So it might take me, a little bit longer than normal to respond. But if you are going to the annual conference on teaching and you would like CREP to pick up your registration, please let me know. I still have a few people I can do that for. And all I'll ask is that you sit at the CREP table for a little bit and talk to, interested faculty members like you 6 weeks ago. So we'll be in touch again over the next couple weeks, and I expect an evaluation survey in about a month. And if you have things you would like to talk to me about, just let me know. And thank you so much for joining us. This has been great.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you
Great
very
family.
much, Arden.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.